Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing today? Today is Monday, October 12th. Before we start, guys, give me a minute. So, how's everybody's weekend this weekend? It's been a pretty good weekend so far. Had the Caledonia Festival Saturday with the parade. And we had about 1,000 people in town. They had the social distance and also they had to make sure no candy was being thrown out and everything. So, other than that, it's been a pretty good weekend and everything. So, that's what it is right now. So, I mean, I'm trying to share. That we're going live on YouTube instead of Facebook tonight or this morning. Been having a lot of issues with Facebook Live lately. So we've been having a lot of issues with Facebook Live. So we're going to try it here on good old YouTube. Good old YouTube. So we're here today. We're going to be just going through what news, what events have been currently going on here in the United States. The events right now, their Democrats condemned shame hearings. Republicans warns against partisan suicide bombing. I don't know what that means. That means their justice is in the balance. The Bar Association rates Amy Coney Barrett well, qualified in statement ahead of confirmation hearing. Trump is rushing Barrett's confirmation hearing because of contested election fears. He thinks that she's going to help him in the election and be good, but it's not. So, also, we got protests happened out in Portland last night. It was bad out there in Portland. If you guys want to see, let's see if there's a video of it. Yeah, Fox News headlines about the statues. Let me share that to you. This is from Fox News headlines. Portland protesters topple Lincoln statue and Roosevelt statues during day of rage to protest Columbus Day. Columbus Day. Here, take a look, guys.
My company was developing AI.
Well, it's going to do an ad.
If you missed an episode of Next, you can watch it anytime.
Who wants one thing? To get rid of us.
Next, Tuesdays at 9, or watch anytime on Fox Now or Hulu.
That's your Fox News briefs. Didn't mention nothing about the protests except the one in Denver, Colorado. So there is a lot of videos out there. The real Donald Trump did, as you call it, he did post last night. These are Biden fools, Antifa radicals. Get them, FBI, and get them now. So he was trying for that. So I'm going to show you what I'm reading on this news article here. This is what I'm reading here. So we're going to look at this one. That's Donald Trump's post. So let's look at Kitty Shackelford. That's going to make me go to her Twitter page. So it's going to make me go to her Twitter page, guys. So I'm going to have to go to her Twitter page real quick. But yeah, she was out there to protest. crud. It ain't going to let me view it, is it? Yep. There we go. This is out in Portland. That was out in Portland. How can people literally treat people's stuff like that? I've been to many protests, and there has been no rioting or looting in our area, but everywhere else there is. It's just stupid. So we'll see what other media she's got. That's the same one. There it is. This is where they tipped over the Lincoln I think this is the Abraham Lincoln statue here in Portland. They tipped over. Let's see here. Let's go back to Explore. The Lakers did win the championship last night. Congratulations to the Lakers. Let's see here. Do we got any more? Excuse me. We don't, but the LA Lakers celebrate the Lakers championship in true Los Angeles fashion. That's from the Los Angeles Times. This is from the Los Angeles Times of the Lakers celebrating an NBA championship in less than a decade. Oh, so many fireworks went off. 4th of July was trending on Facebook and Twitter, it says. Hey, they was doing it for Kobe. Kobe Bryant Street Boulevard. Here's another video. Now that would be an awesome protest view. Everybody get around, cheer like that, and come together just like that. That would make a good protest where everybody comes together. That's what needs to happen. But you got these radical Antifas that don't. Here they are, they're chanting Kobe. They're chanting Kobe. Which is pretty awesome, you know. They're chanting for Kobe Bryant. That's pretty cool. Let's see what else we got out here, guys. Besides the day one confirmation hearing, Trump is trying to push it through so he can win the election if there is any, because they'll send it to her. Here's confirmed ACB. Not a single Democrat has mentioned Amy Klobuchar's religion today whatsoever. Yet Senator Josh Hawley is attacking Democrats for doing so. He's a religious bigot. And that comes from Miss Karanchian. I cannot pronounce that name. Let me add this to the stream, guys. As you can see it. That's what it's showing up. Let's see here. Don't want to see no Amazon. Never forget how Democrats trusted Justice Brett Kavanaugh. So there is a bunch of people out there right now trending. Trump boom. I'm not even sure why the GOP is rushing to confirm ACB before the election, when having the seat up for grabs seems like it would get the conservatives to the polls in droves. So I believe, in my opinion, that Trump is using it to, if there is a election mishap or an election, it would go to the Supreme Court. And you see here, there's a bunch of it. KCB put, because when Biden wins, and Biden will pack the living bleep out of the court. Another one writes, if you think I'm wrong and the Democrats won't confirm ACB, they are given a fairest legitimacy by holding the hearings to begin with and attempting to argue the norm of her merits. Just not doing it at all. F this country's awful two-party system. Okay, that didn't need to do that. That was a weird view. Chris Wallace doesn't hide his bias at all. He clearly does not want to confirm ACB. That's true. Let's see what else we got on here. Brave for Amy Cornick. People these days, guys. People these days. It's a lot out there. This economy's coming to bad with all these protests and these hearings. It's bad. You know, I just feel bad for this whole country. But, you know, nobody understands half the time. I'm going to see if we can pull this up here, the Abe Lincoln statue again. Because for some reason, it's not, it says there's a video, but there is no video. There it is. Here it is, guys. I found it.
America. America. This election season, there are a lot of issues worth debating. But please.
Don't drink and debate who won the debates.
Don't drink and debate how we're going to vote this year. But please do vote.
Don't drink and bring up gerrymandering.
Jerry? Who's Jerry?
And if there's anything Smirnoff knows for sure.
Don't ever drink and bring up Russia. Just drink water instead. Smirnoff. Drink responsibly, debate responsibly.
Not everyone will be celebrating Christopher Columbus on the holiday tomorrow. In fact, critics question whether he or some other historical figures should be standing tall at all. It's a list that Mo Rocca tells us seems to be growing.
What do you think when you look at that statue?
It's George Washington. It's the first president of the United States. It's the leader of the American Revolution. But I also see a slaveholder.
Rutgers history professor Erica Armstrong Dunbar has dedicated much of her career to telling the story of Ona Judge, one of the more than 300 Black people enslaved by President George Washington and his wife, Martha.
George Washington walked up and down this corridor, this area.
Ona Judge managed to escape when the couple was living here in Philadelphia, the nation's capital, during the 1790s. She was never captured, not that the Washingtons didn't try.
The Washingtons were very adamant that they wanted Ona Judge to return. And what's so very interesting is to think about George and Martha Washington relentlessly pursuing Ona Judge. He was using slave-catching agents to collect Martha Washington and his property. And we have to reckon that there was that side of Washington alongside of his contributions to the creation of the nation.
And for Dunbar, that reckoning may mean taking Washington down from his pedestal, literally.
Should some monuments to George Washington be removed?
I think it makes sense to have monuments of remembrance for George Washington in spaces where there's a direct connection to him. But do I need to see George Washington's face in every park or in places throughout cities? No, not necessarily, because for some people, he's a reminder of the trauma of slavery.
The long-running battle over America's monuments came to a head in 2015 after a white supremacist murdered 9 African Americans at Charleston, South Carolina's Mother Emanuel Church. Since then, around 100 Confederate statues have been dishonorably discharged. But since the death of George Floyd, the range of figures targeted as racist or oppressive has expanded well beyond the Civil War South.
Monuments are literally elevated above the people, right? This is a wrestle over power. This is a wrestle over who gets to tell the nation's history, who gets to be at the top of that history.
But the power politics behind memorials aren't always obvious. Christopher Columbus has long been controversial, a brilliant navigator and a brutal colonialist.
That's telling me my people are less than human. My people are a brown-skinned beast.
But many Columbus statues were erected in the early 20th century as symbols of pride for Italian Americans, a group that had faced fierce prejudice, even lynchings in the 1890s.
Slapping every Italian American in the face with this BS that's going on here.
For many Italian Americans, this was a way to demonstrate that they contributed to making America, a way to say that they were equal.
As Secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch may be the closest thing America has to a national curator. He believes monuments should reflect today's values.
I think that what the Columbus statue tells us is that it's a challenge to take something that was done 70 years ago and help it evolve. So my notion is that some of these statues can be pruned.
We have to get rid of every racist monument in this country.
It's history. It is part of history, and it should stay here.
In general, are you heartened by all these debates?
Anytime people talk about history, I'm a happy guy. And I think there's something powerful about a country periodically debating who it is and who it wants to become.
But what many have found jarring is the lack of debate. Missionary Junipero Serra torched. Augustus St. Gaudens's tribute to an all-black Union regiment graffitied. Thomas Jefferson toppled. Ulysses S. Grant fallen. Even Gandhi has been bloodied.
As a historian, do you start to wonder, I wonder if all these people know their history?
Well, actually, no, I don't wonder. I know that they don't. I know that the vast majority of Americans don't know their history.
Does that bother you?
It horrifies me. I also understand that there's anger, there's rage, and sometimes there's collateral damage.
There is a big element of anti-Americanism in this, not only anti the bad things, but anti the good things, because there are no good things, right? The whole history is corrupt, and I think that's wrong.
Writer Richard Brookhiser thinks a little bit of humility is in order.
I mean, if you're only going to have statues of perfect people, you're going to be left with Jesus Christ. You're not going to have a lot of other statues. People are complicated. We have to realize that about ourselves and about the dead.
Brookhiser is the biographer of several founding fathers, including Washington.
Washington was a hero in the struggle for self-rule. And the struggle for self-rule is the big story of the last 250 years. It includes all the other stories. It includes anti-colonialism. It includes the struggle against racism. The American Revolution was the greatest experiment in human political history. And it's crazy to throw that in the garbage can.
I do not think you erase Washington and Jefferson, and of course, obviously now everybody loves Hamilton.
Lonnie Bunch sees in Washington and our other slave-holding founding fathers contradictions we should strive to understand.
It's almost like saying, how do you understand your parents if you only know a little bit about them. The more you know about them, the more you better understand who they were and then who you are. And that's what I'd like us to see with some of the founding fathers, help people understand a little better who they once were and who they can be.
It's a big moment in anyone's life when they realize their parents aren't perfect people.
You're right. And then as you get older, you realize they were more perfect than you thought initially.
Perhaps the best way to bring peace to our memorial landscape is to add statues. In 2017, Philadelphia dedicated this statue of Octavius Catto, a 19th century African-American civil rights activist who was murdered on his way to vote. It's right outside City Hall, which is where we bumped into Philly resident Les Starkey and his daughter, Summer.
This gentleman finally got his due.
Seeing this statue gives you a feeling of
Pride. I lift my chest up a little bit more. I do, man. I mean, it's one of us. I can do something great like him. He was a great man, Summer. We're going to read more about him, okay? Promise.
Passions may continue flaring in the short term.
Are you angry? Yeah. Are you angry? Yeah. I'm mad. We're mad.
But as in all things historical, it's important to consider the long view.
This isn't the first time in history that statues have been toppled.
No, there was a statue toppled in New York City in 1776, a gilded statue of George III, which had been put up when we all thought he was a good guy.
The British monarch.
The British monarch. They were fighting a revolution against him. The statue was torn down. And the story is it was made of lead, and the lead was melted into bullets.
Are any of these things permanent?
Nothing is permanent. You know, we're all going to die. There'll come a time when the United States doesn't exist anymore.
Some things last longer than others.
Well, some things last longer than others, and let's hope the good things last longest.
That was a good article story there that they did, that CBS did, about the statues. So today is Columbus Day. Columbus set sail today. So what is Columbus Day means to everybody? What does Columbus Day mean to you? What does it mean to all of us? Well, I'm going to tell you what Columbus Day means to me. I'll tell you what Columbus Day really means. I was in school. Christopher Columbus landed in the United States in 1492. All right, Columbus landed in our country. So what is the controversy? What is the controversy about Columbus Day? You know, it's BS. Okay? Although vigorous indigenous peoples have been settled in America long before Columbus arrived, Columbus' goal was to pillage the land for riches, regardless of who stood in his way. Columbus and his men mistreated the natives and used slavery for violence, which was wrong. That's not in the history books. People want to say that, but it's no longer true. Okay? You can't change history. Nobody can change history. So, what was Christopher Columbus looking for? He made 4 trips across the Atlantic Ocean from Spain in 1492, 1493, 1498, and 1502. He was determined to find a direct water route from West Europe to Asia, but never did. Instead, he stumbled upon the Americas. Where do you think Christopher Columbus think he landed in 1492? The history books state that Christopher Columbus, of course, thought he arrived in the Indies, an old name for Asia. Although the phrase the East Indies is still often used in historical reference to the islands of South Asia. Okay. So that's what I think. Now here's another one. We're going to go back to way back to 1861. April 12th, 1861. What was the Confederate Army fighting for back in 1861? The Confederate States Army, also known as the Confederate Army or simply the Southern Army, was a military land force of the Confederate States of America, commonly referred to as the Confederacy. During the American Civil War of 1861, fighting against the United States forces in order to uphold the institution of the Confederate. What was three main causes of the Civil War? Well, for nearly a century, the people and politicians of the northern and southern states had been clashing over issues that finally led to war, economic interests, cultural values, the power of the federal government to control the states, and most importantly, to free slavery in American society. So the Confederates were trying to free slavery in the United States. So they want to protest the Battle of Pilot Knob. They want to all these battles in Missouri. There's a lot of them, battles out there. But Battle of Pilot Knob was the most one. The Battle of Pilot Knob, way back, was Pilot Knob, Cannibal, Clark, Wilson, the town of Pilot Knob. So they was in the town of Pilot Knob when they was doing the battle. Let's see here. This ain't pulling up. It's actually called the Battle of Fort Davidson. The Battle of Fort Davidson, also known as the Battle of Pilot Knob, was the opening engagement of Prince Missouri's raid during the American Civil War. The engagement occurred on September 27th, 1864, just outside Pilot Knob in Iron County, Missouri. The Union defenders managed to repulse repeated Confederate assaults on their works and were able to slip away during the night by exploiting a gap in the southern siege lines. The attacking rebels took possession of the fort the next day, but they didn't. Ammunition ended his goal of seizing St. Louis for the Confederacy. So that was in the Battle of the Pilot Knob. As today, you still can see the crater from the Power magazine blast that is visible in the Pilot Knob Hill. The Battle of Pilot Knob began on September 26th when leading elements of Pierce's army encountered the Union pickets south of Ironton, 3 miles, and of Fort Davidson, too. The federal troops were driven back into town, and the two sides exchanged fire on the Iron County Courthouse lawn. The building still stands, and the damage from the stray bullets can be seen in the structure's bricks there in Iron County. The aftermath is were furious at the deception and demand that their commander pursue the escaping Union troops. He had almost lost 6% of his army in 3 precious days. So only Abraham Lincoln's 29th, only around 600 to 700 survivors of the original 1,500 limped into Leesburg. Pierce's troops mounted up and resumed their advance northward towards Jeff City. But all right, guys, we're going to end that here. We're going to start another live stream here in a minute. It's going to be talking about what the culture of our country is coming to with the ACAB hashtag and all of that. So don't forget to tune back into that. And thank you for watching News to Share Missouri.